Welcome to INFOHUB Recap, where we focus on the top issues for the past week. In our headlines, parliamentary sittings resume with the reading of several bills and the passage of a long overdue juvenile justice bill. Cooperation agreement signed for rebuilding of Indian Arrival Monument in Berbice. East Bank Berbice Road Rehabilitation Project to bring relief to residents after years of complaints on deaf ears. Women in ICT are recognized, and it's another historical first as the International Arbitration Conference hosted in Georgetown for the first time. Stay tuned for the details of these and more.
Here's an important message from the Ministry of Finance and the Ghana Revenue Authority.
If you've never filed or paid your taxes, or have deliberately not declared your true income, and now you're worried that you'll be audited by the Guyana Revenue Authority, I have good news for you.
The Ministry of Finance has announced a tax amnesty effective January 1 to September 30, 2018.
So you can now pay all your outstanding income, property, corporate, withholding, and capital gains taxes and get right with the GRA. Visit their office or call them at 227-6060, extension 1201 or 1204 today.
Invest in your country. Pay your taxes.
We begin with the news that the highly anticipated Linden Town Week officially began on Sunday. INFOHUB's Stefan Gabriel joined thousands in the mining town and brings us this report.
The Linden Town Week 2018 celebrations have officially started with a welcoming ceremony by the Mayor and Town Council.
Addressing the opening ceremony was Minister of State Joseph Harmon.
Today, as we celebrate 48 years as a town, I would also like to join with you and the rest of Guyana to wish all of Linden every success in the planned activities for Linden Town Week 2018. Your diverse list of activities, and I've seen a list of almost 56 activities, the variety of exhibits and the rich cultural program are clear indications that the rich cultural heritage and diverse business activities and opportunities of this great town will be on full display over the ensuing days.
Mayor of Linden, Winika Arundel, also addressed the gathering, urging the residents to keep pushing for better.
That celebrating 48 years as a town does not come with only happy moments. There will be days when we will fight. There will be days when we will want to quit. But I urge you not to. Do not quit. Do not stop fighting. Keep believing. Keep dreaming. Keep hoping. Because what you're fighting for is not just for now. It's for our future generation.
Linden Town Week is officially 10 days of celebration that features a variety of sport events, essay writing and spelling bee competitions, a youth village, and tours to Rockzone and Kumako communities.
Reporting from Linden, this is Stefan Gabriel for INFOHUB.
The completion of the Indian Arrival Monument is on the front burner of the national agenda. A high-level ministerial team visited the site at Palmyra on the east bank of Berbice on Sunday, and several disclosures were made. Zanil Williams reports.
A ministerial delegation headed by Minister Raphael Trotman visited the monument site on the East Bank, Berbice, on Sunday and had a first-hand look at the state of the affairs. The base of the monument had collapsed last year, and this was cited as being due to flaws in the initial design, which was done under the former PPP administration. The APNU AFC government inherited this poor design and work commenced. Minister Trotman, who was performing the functions of Minister of Foreign Affairs at the time, said that the coalition government has agreed to utilize the services of engineers and other experts from India to ensure the completion of the historic monument.
We're here as ministers in fulfillment of that understanding between the two countries that the government of India would lend expertise.
Minister of Public Infrastructure David Patterson explained that a soil test showed that the 17-ton statue was too heavy to lay on the swamp land, which was previously used as a cane field.
So it confirmed that the initial the initial works were premature to be done, executed without having the full benefit of a soil test. But but obviously now hindsight is 20/20 vision. So we're looking to have it now expedited.
According to Minister Trotman, government hopes the monument could be completed before the arrival of India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who is expected to visit Ghana in November. He added that the relevant documents have already been sent to India and are being examined by the experts there. Minister of Social Cohesion Dr. George Norton was also part of the ministerial delegation. Zanil Williams for INFOHUB.
Prime Minister Nagamootoo described the recent charges by the opposition against several government ministers, all of which were discontinued by the Director of Public Prosecutions, Shalimar Haque, as a complete mockery of the legal system. Stacey Carmichael spoke with the elder statesman.
I think what's happening here is a typical case of what Guyanese would say when cow gone a slaughterhouse. They just do certain things on their tail, and faced with a investigative process that resulted in charges against former government ministers, the PPP has decided that it will rubbish the entire process. It will try to diminish the integrity of the investigative and legal process, and by implication, to denigrate our courts.
The charges against the ministers came a week after the Special Organized Crime Unit brought charges against former PPP Finance Minister Dr. Ashni Singh and former head of NISIL Winston Brassington for illegally selling 3 plots of land for over $900 million. Prime Minister Nagamootoo described the counter-charges as politically motivated and tit for tat, noting that the opposition's actions are an attempt to undermine the legal system and question the authority of judicial officers. This, he underscored, is a grave situation.
I don't see a ghost of a chance of any of these spurious counter-charges privately filed by PPP MPs succeeding in the court. But I don't think that the intention has been that these charges should succeed. I think that the mischief is being created by the fact of charges being filed and not the results of prosecution or hearing or trial into these charges. So that the Jagdeo gang is creating a smoke screen to hide the seriousness of allegations being proffered against former government officials. And so Guyanese can see through the smoke screens and should not be diverted by these shenanigans and these sideshows being organized by the opposition.
The Director of Public Prosecution, Shalimar Haque, discontinued the charges against Ministers Valda Lawrence and Dr. George Norton and is expected to do the same for the other charges filed by PPP Member of Parliament, Anil Nandalal. Prime Minister Nagamootoo concluded by noting that the DPP acted in accordance with the Constitution to discontinue the charges. For INFOHUB, Stacey Carmichael.
We now report that the State Assets Recovery Agency is reviewing over 50 cases and will begin proceedings in 10 of these soon. Tiffany Rogers has the details.
Professor Clive Thomas, SARA's director, says the agency is reviewing well over 50 to 60 cases for the recovery of state assets which were disposed of under the previous government.
Be able to start in the third quarter. We're hoping to focus on about, I would say, roughly about 10. Because part of the international commitment that we have depends on the value of the cases. And we have to meet a certain target value. They have to be above a certain figure for the cases to proceed overseas, to make it worthwhile for the agencies to proceed it.
The State Assets Recovery Act of 2017 makes provision for SARA to pursue international cases valued more than $10 million, Professor Thomas noted. The cases that are being reviewed by SARA are based on complaints and referrals.
There's no single case that we have ever pursued that has not been referred to us, either by another criminal agency, let's say SOCO, the DPP or whoever it might be, the police. That's the mechanism we've used so far, or a government department.
Professor Thomas says mechanisms will be put in place for persons to report alleged unlawful conduct by public officials.
We will be putting on our website very shortly the procedure that we would adopt for deciding whether or not to pursue these cases and how we will pursue them. Because we have to also be careful that people don't make false accusations against others or deliberately try to seek to create mischief.
SARA is mandated to investigate, trace, identify and recover unlawfully obtained state properties from a public official or other person, wherever in the world it is located. Reporting for INFOHUB, Tiffany Rogers.
A $360 million drainage pump station has been constructed at Lusignan, and east coast of Demerara residents will receive faster relief after intermittent flooding caused by heavy rainfall. Here is Tiffany again.
The Lusignan pump station can discharge over 100 gallons of water per minute. It is part of the government's continued efforts to mitigate the effects of heavy rainfall on communities along the low-lying coast of Guyana. It is one of 3 located on the east coast of Demerara. The other 2 are at Buxton and on the border of Hope and Enmore. Rajni Baldio is optimistic that the new pump will bring relief to herself and her neighbours.
So that is the main drain there, so I'm living right behind it. So as soon as rain fall, we get flood. But now with the new pump, now we wouldn't be experiencing those flooding anymore. I hope so.
A resident of the neighbouring community of Good Hope and a councillor for the Neighbourhood Democratic Council, Clayton Belgrave, described the development as excellent.
Basically for Good Hope, so all of this is part of the community development. So I'm also a councillor for Lusignan NDC. So having this event, this opening of this pump station is a really good thing for us, meaning that in terms of drainage, it's really excellent. For the fact that we had the flood and the drainage is not all of that good, this is going to be a stepping stone for us in our community.
Director of the Agriculture Sector Development Unit, George Jarvis, said the project represents a new approach to dealing with flood risk in the communities, one aimed at empowering residents and farmers rather than making them dependent on government's handouts in times of heavy rainfall. The project was financed through the World Bank's International Development Agency, and construction was done by General Engineering Services and Supplies. For INFOHUB, Tiffany Rogers.
After many years of suffering with the deplorable road, East Bank Berbice residents will soon have a brand new billion-dollar road. Renetta LaFleur was in Berbice and gives us this major update.
I'm out here on the East Bank Berbice Road, where the $1.2 billion road project is progressing amidst challenges.
Work on the multi-million-dollar project officially began on December 4, 2017. Though the removal of utilities continues to pose a challenge, Minister of Public Infrastructure David Patterson assured that the project is still on schedule.
So we're pushing ahead now that they're about 90 to 95% Gaiwa, 90-95% complete. A bit slow, so we're now trying to push as much as possible before the May-June rain comes in as possible. The idea is to actually have a little seal on it, so therefore we don't lose any of the material that you see here.
The project is divided into 4 lots, with lots 3 and 4 being completed. Resident engineer Joel Tucker.
To date, we've managed to complete base course, that's the layer before we put on the asphalt surface in Islington over Winning, and also about 85% of the Edinburgh area. We've completed Everton up to asphalt surface, which is a forest layer, so we have remaining to put on the base course in Glasgow and Gay Park.
When completed, the 5-kilometer roadway will be outfitted with highway lighting, guardrails, and other road safety features.
From Glasgow, East Bank Berbice, Renetta LaFleur reporting for INFOHUB.
Stacey joins us again to report that all government agencies now have access to the recently acquired government cloud. It will ensure they have the required computing and storage resources necessary for the fulfillment of the government's information and communication technology and e-governance mandate.
The G-Cloud, chairman of the National Data Management Authority, Floyd Levi, said is a relatively new technology to Guyana and possibly the first cloud of its size installed locally. Given the large volume of ICT services being rolled out by the government, the requisite infrastructure must be in place to assist in the delivery.
Actually allows us to give on demand to government agencies servers and storage locations as they need it. So rather than an agency having to go to one of the vendors in Guyana to buy a server, they can actually contact the NDMA, and within a matter of an hour or 2, they get the server from within our local cloud that they would normally have had to spend about 4, 5, maybe even 6 months going through a procurement process to acquire.
The cloud, Levi explained, is a collection of virtual servers with high capabilities from which the NDMA is able to create more servers. The G-Cloud is stored at a data center at the NDMA.
Using our fiber optic connection, which is very high-speed connection between the ministries and our data center, for all intents and purposes, it will appear as though that server is within their own network.
This is part of the coalition government's plan of making available all government services, such as passport and birth certificate applications, accessible online. For InfoHub, Stacey Carmichael.
In oil and gas news, we report that Guyana's Civil Defense Commission has sought international expertise in drafting a contingency plan in the unlikely event of an oil spill. Details from Natasha Isaacs.
Director Lieutenant Colonel Kester Craig responded to reports in the Kaiser News, which suggested that the CDC did not seek the expertise of international specialists when it drafted its response protocols. Craig was speaking on Monday at the opening session of a 3-day Incident Command Systems and Oil Spill Response training at the CDC headquarters in Thomas Lands.
At this juncture, it's important to note that Guyana's National Oil Spill Contingency Plan has been developed in draft locally, drawing on material available regionally and internationally, and in keeping with the International Maritime Organization guidelines.
According to the CDC head, Guyana's local capacity in no way prevents the involvement of international experts.
The first draft of the National Oil Spill Contingency Plan benefited from expert support and guidance through the United States Department of State-led Energy Governance and Capacity Initiative and the United States Coast Guard. It was also reviewed by the International Maritime Organization.
Craig said a second review is currently ongoing and public consultations will soon commence, after which the plan can be further amended. The proposal will then be reviewed, tested, and adjusted before it is presented to Cabinet for final approval and adoption. For InfoHub, Natisha Isaacs.
The third International Commercial Arbitration Conference, hosted in Georgetown for the first time, is important to the strengthening of Guyana's legal and structural framework in the area of dispute resolution. Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs Basil Williams made this observation at the opening at Duke Lodge.
Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs Basil Williams, speaking at the International Commercial Arbitration Conference, said the international community's growing attraction to Guyana and the burgeoning interest of investors in the oil and gas sector demand that our standards be tested and raised.
Recently, Guyana has seen the rise in its involvement in international transactions, and this is not likely to decelerate in the near future. Therefore, creating a legal climate that is conducive to economic trade and investment is crucial at this juncture. More so, since the time has come to promulgate modern arbitration laws to meet internationally acceptable standards.
Arbitration, the minister pointed out, has been the traditional and preferred accepted mode of resolving international disputes. International commercial investors, he noted, generally favor arbitration with the power of autonomy over the process, the ability to negotiate and tailor the procedure, as opposed to the strict and often lengthy court proceedings.
Countries having a strong legal framework have always attracted investors. Ghana, with the recent development of its oil and gas sector, is no exception, and hence there is a need for greater capacity building while creating a legal environment that is sound and investor-friendly.
The conference is hosted by the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators, Caribbean Branch, an internationally recognized body promoting the use of alternative dispute resolution. It is being held in collaboration with the University of Guyana, the Caribbean International Chamber of Commerce, the International Center for the Settlement of Disputes, CARICOM, and the Dispute Resolution Center. The conference will comprise CIARB training in arbitration and mediation for lawyers and non-lawyers, as well as workshops on international arbitration issues. For InfoHub, Stacey Carmichael.
The Ministry of Public Telecommunications on Wednesday hosted a luncheon for several women in the field of information and communication technology at the Cara Lodge, Georgetown. More from Stacey Carmichael.
The Ministry of Public Telecommunications continues to highlight the importance of women and girls in the growing field of information communication technology, ICT, across Guyana through several initiatives. Minister Catherine Yu, speaking prior to a luncheon hosted for professional women in ICT today, underscored the importance of empowering girls in the field.
By 2025, they're saying 70% of all jobs are going to be in information communication technologies. And we just want to make sure that our girls are ready. So the ministry is working on creating opportunities where we're connecting people to the internet, as you know, in schools and hinterland areas, but also we're looking at the training and education side.
Minister Yu said the luncheon was conceptualized with the aim of providing an avenue for the women to network and look at areas of collaboration on future projects involving women and girls. Co-founder of She Leads It organization, Nicole Peter-Patterson, explained that her organization intends to empower women enterprises globally and has been partnering with local organizations.
This year, we're very, very excited that we are reaching out to over 800 girls for engagement across 5 countries. That's Jamaica, Barbados, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Trinidad and Tobago. And here in Guyana, what we will be having is a Girls in ICT Tech Lab, a Guyana Tech Lab that's going to be led by Geotech Vision, which will see 55 girls from 11 schools and university, including University of Guyana, doing webinars and actually doing activities in terms of web development.
The Tech Lab is intended to upskill the 55 girls, particularly in a practical way. This will be followed by the hosting of a hackathon in July 2018, which will be larger and feature more hands-on activities. Judging from the experiences in other countries, Peter Patterson said avenues will be created for the women and girls in ICT. For INFOHUB, Stacey Carmichael.
And now to address some fake news which has been floating about this week. GRA boss Godfrey Stacia rubbished false media reports that government was moving to impose VAT on exports. Paul McAdam has the details.
Speaking at a press conference on Tuesday, the Commissioner General responded to a false report in the Guyana Times newspaper, which followed a release from the Private Sector Commission. Stacia said that the PSC was writing on behalf of the Guyana Rice Exporters and Millers Association, the Georgetown Chambers of Commerce and Industry, and the Guyana Manufacturers Association. He said that there might well be some misunderstanding of the VAT Act.
I do not understand where people are getting the impression that exports will be subjected to VAT. There is nothing in the VAT Act that's saying that export must be subjected to VAT.
The Rice Exporters Association had written to the Minister of Finance, Winston Jordan, earlier this month, seeking clarification on exports. The minister responded, advising the association that they should supply the GRA with the empirical evidence to show that VAT, or VAT, is indeed placed on export items, and to support their claims of significant losses and costs due to the changes from zero-rated status to exempt status by the 2017 amendments to the VAT Act.
All I am asking is, if you are saying that you would be adversely affected, prove it to me. Show me the facts. And we are yet to see any facts. No one has brought any facts to show that they have been adversely affected.
According to the Commissioner General, Godfrey Stacia, the changes in the VAT Act in 2017 was an attempt to minimize a request for refunds. The GRA then moved zero-rated items to exempt and vice versa. The Finance Minister, in his budget speech late last year, had assured that none of the proposed amendments to the Act would negatively impact any individual or business enterprise. According to Stacia, the request to the GREMA was made in the light of the previous initiatives taken to exempt the raw materials and other items used in the rice industry to reduce the burden of VAT. Regarding the contention that the government has disallowed exporters the right to reclaim the VAT paid on imports used to produce goods and services, Stacia explained that since the implementation of VAT in 2007, only exempted goods exported from Guyana would not reclaim import VAT. Paul McCallum for INFOHUB.
The long overdue Juvenile Justice Bill was passed by the National Assembly during the 87th Parliamentary sitting on April 26th. Its unanimous passage by the National Assembly will significantly reform how juvenile offenders are treated by law enforcement and the judiciary.
The Juvenile Justice Bill will pave the way for Guyana to fulfill various international treaty obligations. More importantly, it also ushers in a new milestone in the nation's journey towards juvenile justice reform. The bill, Minister of Public Security Kemraj Ramjatan explained, covered the legal actions that could be taken once juveniles commit an offense and gives those committed or incarcerated a second chance to redeem themselves.
This spent 14 years under a PPP administration, 3 years under Blue AFC administration. And why shouldn't we get on with the business? Yes, yes. And so it is important that that be appreciated, and we understand then that these provisions in this are very, very exhaustive. They cater for a lot of the niceties that are asked of in the international obligations.
Attorney General Basil Williams alluded to the bill's measures that speak to the mode of dealing with those juveniles found guilty of offences.
Further diversion allows for effective and timely interventions focused on correcting offending behavior. And the bill sets out that diversion measures shall be designed to provide an effective and timely response to offending behavior outside the bounds of judicial measures. They must also be designed to encourage juveniles to acknowledge and repair the harm caused to the victim and the community.
In her support of the legislation, Minister of Social Protection Amna Ali noted that the measures will ensure access to facilities for the custody, education and rehabilitation for juvenile offenders, protect them from harm and increase their chances of a better life.
It is imperative that we support effective alternatives to detention when possible, because children should not be incarcerated. The vast majority of children who are incarcerated have been accused of minor or non-violent crimes, and they should not be stigmatized and ostracized for having committed relatively minor acts.
The Ministry of Social Protection, Minister Ali also assured, will play an integral role in positively changing the lives of children through guidance and counseling and the other alternatives to incarceration as listed in the bill. For INFOHUB, Stacey Carmichael.
Spanking new facilities soon for travelers as CJIA expansion project wraps up in weeks.
Minister of Public Infrastructure David Patterson explained that the upgraded facilities will be handed over within weeks by contractor China Harbour and Engineering Company.
The departure lounge we saw downstairs will be opened up for use next week. Progressively, we put one airline there from next week, and they'll give them a week trial run, and if everything is perfect, we move all the others there. So by the mid-May, the new departure lounge will be open. This section, which will be toured shortly after you have your brunch, is scheduled to open in June.
Patterson added that bids for automated kiosks to scan passports and speed up the immigration process are being sought.
His Excellency had asked us to ensure that the airport is uniquely Guyanese with our craft and pictorial images, and we have incorporated that. He's also mandated us to ensure, after having a tour, that the time spent in the airport for arriving customers should be cut at least in half.
Members of Parliament, the private sector and other stakeholders were given a guided tour of ongoing expansion works at the CJIA. This comes as efforts continue to improve facilities at the country's main international airport. Paul McAdam for INFOHUB.
We end with Cabinet Roundup. Here is Stacey again.
Guyana's immediate response to the Langkawi Declaration with the pledging of 371,000 hectares of our rainforests for the establishment of the Arukama International Center for Rainforest Conservation and Development was highlighted by President David Granger at the 2018 CHOGM. Minister of State Joseph Harmon at today's post-cabinet press conference.
Arukama, he reminded the meeting, remained the Commonwealth's flagship environmental program. Also highlighted by His Excellency was Guyana's accreditation of the Connection protected areas consisting of over 7,000 square kilometers to the Queen's Commonwealth Canopy Program.
Minister Harmon reminded that President Granger also attended the London Malaria Summit, where he committed to the elimination of the disease within this nation's borders. Highlighting the ExxonMobil drill ship Noble Bob Douglas' arrival, Minister Harmon said it signals the increase in preparatory activities by the company for first oil. Guyana will benefit from a $20 million grant for capacity building in the oil and gas sector.
As a consequence, the World Bank would provide 2 experts to conduct a high-level workshop on the Sovereign Wealth Fund, including its fiscal arrangements, rules, and best practices.
The workshop will be held on May 21, 2018 and will see the participation of all government ministers and MPs, including the opposition. The government's commitment to the implementing measures to minimize the use of plastics was also noted by Minister Harmon.
Propose appropriate legislation to give effect to those measures.
In closing, it was stated by the minister that work on the Indian Immigration Monument at Palmyra will soon commence. This comes on the heels of an inspection by a ministerial team. For INFOHUB, Stacey Carmichael.